Let's do some practice problems for balancing chemical equations. We'll start off with some examples that are pretty basic and straightforward, and then the problems will get more challenging as we move on. Here's our first equation. We got xenon and fluorine. We want to keep track of how many atoms of these elements we have on both sides of the equation, so we're going to make a little chart, okay? I got xenon and fluorine on this side, and then xenon and fluorine on this side. Over here, I have one xenon atom, one, and then I have F2, so I got two fluorines. Over here, also one xenon, and then F6, so I got 6 fluorines. Now take a look at these numbers. This equation isn't balanced yet because we have different numbers of the atoms for one of the elements. I've got 2 fluorine here, but I've got 6 fluorine here, so it's not balanced. In order to balance it, I've got to add numbers or coefficients in front of one or more of these elements and compounds to change the number of atoms that I have on the different sides of the equation. Okay? Here's how I'm going to do it. I got 6 fluorine here, but I got 2 fluorine here. So for this to balance, I need more fluorines on the left side. I can add a number in front of the F2 here. If I put 3 in front of this F2, here we'll put it in. If I put 3 in front of this F2, now I have 3 times 2 gives me 6 fluorine, and now they balance. 1, 1 for the xenons, 6 and 6 for the fluorine. So now this is a balanced equation by adding this number, by adding this coefficient. Now really quick, this is one very common question. People often ask, wait, why did you put that 3 there? Couldn't you just change this 2 to a 6 and then it would also balance? No, 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 no. You can't do that. It's a super common misconception. You can't change these subscripts here. You can't change them, you can't add them. So you can't change this to a 6. You can't put a 6 here or anything like that. The only thing you can do is you can put numbers in front of the elements or compounds, okay? But you can't change or add the subscripts. Okay, so that's how you balance an equation. Let's do a whole bunch more practice. Okay, so in this equation we've got 3 elements: silver, Ag, hydrogen, H, and sulfur, S. Obviously we've got these on both sides of the equation. Okay, so let's see how many atoms we have of each. Over here we got 1 Ag, we got H2, so we got 2 hydrogen atoms, and then we have S, so we got 1 sulfur atom. Over here we have Ag2, so we have 2 silvers here. Sulfur, we have 1, and then we have H2, so we have 2 hydrogens. Okay, what balances and what doesn't? Well, the hydrogens and sulfur both balance, but the silver, we have 2 here and 1 here. We can fix it by adding a number or coefficient in front of one or more of these elements and compounds. I need more silvers on this side, and luckily, I can just put a 2 in front of this Ag. So now instead of having 1 Ag, now I have 2, and now I got 2, 2, and 1. It balances. This equation is a little bit more challenging because we have oxygen in all the compounds here. That means that we're just going to have to be a little bit more careful when we're adding up the number of oxygen atoms that we have. Okay? So the elements in this equation. We got K, potassium, O, oxygen, H, hydrogen, and C, carbon. And over on this side, we've got potassium, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. Okay, how many of each of these do we have? Okay, we got 1 potassium here. Now for oxygen, this is where you just got to be a little bit more careful, okay, because we have 1 oxygen here, but then we have 2 oxygens here. So 1 plus 2, total we have 3. Then hydrogen, we got 1 of those, and carbon, we got 1 of those. Over here for potassium, we have 2 of these because we got K2. Then oxygen, we have 3 there, and we have 1 there. It's going to give us 4 total. Then we have H2, we have 2 hydrogens, and 1 carbon. Okay, so What balances, what doesn't? The carbons balance, but other than that, we've got to add some coefficients to change this stuff around, okay? Oxygen doesn't balance, but since oxygen is in every one of the compounds, I'm going to leave that for later. I'm going to start with potassium because it's easier, right? I have 2 potassiums here, but I've only got 1 here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2 in front of this KOH, and let's see what that does. Okay, the first thing that's going to do is it's going to give me 2 instead of 1 potassiums, because I have the 2 times K. Now for oxygens, let's look at how it's going to change that. Now I'm going to have 2 oxygens, because 2 times that, plus the 2 that I have over there in CO2. So I'm going to have 2 plus 2 is now going to give me 4. So I've got 4 oxygens. And in terms of hydrogen, now I'm going to have 2 times 1 hydrogen. So I'm going to get 2 hydrogens. And check it out. Putting this 2 here changed everything. So now I've got 2, 4, 2, 1. It all balances. Now we're going to start doing some equations that require more than one step to balance. Okay, so this one here has sodium and chlorine. Over here we got 1 sodium and we have Cl2. We have 2 chlorine atoms. Over here we have NaCl, so we have 1 sodium, 1 Na, and 1 Cl. Okay, how am I going to start? Well, I have more chlorine on this side. I have 2 over here and I only have 1 here. Okay, so I can start out by putting a 2 in front of NaCl. Okay, that's going to give me 2 Cl, but look what else it's going to do. Okay, now I have 2 times Na, so I have 2 Nas. I also have 2 times Cl. Okay, so I also have 2 Cls. So now the Cls balance. But now I have 2 Nas, 2 sodium on this side, and only have 1 on this side. So now to balance this out, I'm going to put a 2 in front of this Na here, and now I have 2 of these. So now on both sides of the equation, I have 2 sodiums and 2 chlorines. The equation balances. Okay, iron, oxygen, and carbon. Over here I have 1 iron, 1 oxygen, and 1 carbon. Here I have 1 iron, 2 oxygens, and 1 carbon. Okay, how am I going to balance this? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to balance these oxygens. Okay, so I have 2 over here and I have 1 here. I'm going to change that by putting a 2 in front of the FeO. Okay, so that's going to give me 2 oxygens, but it's also now going to multiply this Fe by 2. So now I'm going to have 2 Fe. Okay, so now I've got 2 Fe here and 1 there, so now these don't balance. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2 in front of this Fe there. So now instead of having 1, I have 2 of them. Now I have 2, 2, 1. It balances. Okay, let's look at what we have here. We have silicon. On this side we have 1 of them, O2, 2 oxygen, and 1 carbon. Over here we have 1 silicon. Oxygen we have 1, and carbon we have 1 plus 1, so we have 2. Okay, so what doesn't balance? Well, the carbons don't balance and the oxygens don't balance. I'm going to leave the carbon alone for now because it's in both of these compounds. So I kind of don't want to mess with it right now, but I could. I'm just going to start out with the oxygen. Okay, I have 2 oxygens on this side and I have 1 oxygen on this side. So I'm going to multiply the CO by 2, so that can give me 2 oxygens. But now it's also going to do something else, right? Because we're also multiplying the C by that 2. So that means now for the total carbons, I'm going to have the 1 from there, plus now the 2 from there. And that's going to give me a total now of 3. Okay, so now I have 3 carbons here. I've got 1 carbon here, so I'm going to put a 3 in front of this carbon. That's the only carbon on this side. So now I have 3 times 1 is 3. 1, 2, and 3, and they balance. This equation has 5 different elements in it, and it also has these parentheses. So we'll talk about these in a minute. First, the number of atoms. Iron, Fe, we have 1 here. Cl3, Na1, O, and H, we have 1 of those. Okay, now Fe, over here we have 1. And then we got the parentheses. Okay, so the parentheses mean that everything inside here is multiplied by 3. Okay, so we have O times 3, which means we have 3 O's, and we have H times 3. So that's 3 H's. And then we have Na and Cl, so 1 each of those. Okay, so where are we going to start with this? Well, I have an imbalance in my oxygens here, so I might as well just start there. Okay, so 3 here, 1 over here, so I'm going to put a 3 in front of NaOH. Okay, so that is going to multiply all this stuff by 3. I'm going to have 3 Na, 3 O, and 3 H. Okay, what did that do for me? Well, that balanced the oxygens and hydrogens, but now the sodium, the Na, I have 3 on this side and I only have 1 on this side. Okay, so I can fix that by multiplying this NaCl by 3 here. Okay, so that's going to give me 3 Na, and it's also going to be 3 times the Cl. So now I have 3 Cl. And check it out, that fixed it. I have 3 Cl over here, but I got 3 Cl there. Great, so 1, 3, 3, 3, 3, it balances. We got some more parentheses here. Let's take a look at this equation. Okay, I have 1 aluminum, 2 hydrogens, 1 sulfur, and 4 oxygens. Then over here I have 2 aluminums. Everything in here is multiplied by 3. So that means that I have 3 sulfurs, and I have 4 times 3, which is 12 oxygens, and then I have 2 hydrogens. Okay, what am I going to do first? Well, take a look at this. We have aluminum and we have hydrogen on their own. So I'm going to save them for last. I don't want to balance them right now because we can use these at the end to straighten out some of these details. So let's look right now at sulfur and oxygen. I can fix both the sulfur and the oxygen and balance them by multiplying these by 3, right? I have 3 sulfurs and 12 oxygens. So if I just multiply these by 3, I can get them to balance. So I've got sulfur and oxygen there. So I'm going to start by putting a 3 in front of that. Okay? That's then going to give me 3 sulfurs and 3 times 4, 12 oxygens. And it's also going to give me some more hydrogens. Okay, so now I got 6 hydrogens. Okay, so we got the sulfur and the oxygen to balance now just by multiplying by 3. Now my hydrogen doesn't balance. I have 6 on this side, 2 on this side. So I can fix that by multiplying the hydrogen by 3. Now I have 3 times 2 on this side, which is going to give me 6. And then take a look at the aluminum. I have 2 on this side, 1 on this side, but I can fix that by multiplying by 2 over here. And then I get those to balance and everything's good. You may have noticed these are getting a little bit more complex. It takes more and more steps to balance them. Okay, so for this we have 1 nitrogen, we have 3 hydrogens, we have 1 Cu, which is copper, and we have 1 oxygen. Over here we have 2 nitrogens, 2 hydrogens, 1 copper, and 1 oxygen. Okay, where am I going to begin with this? Well, copper and nitrogen are on their own here, so I'm going to leave them to last. I'm going to focus in on hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygens are balanced right now, but the hydrogens are not. And check out, I've got this 3-2 thing going on. I can solve that by doing a crisscross multiplication to get 6. So the hydrogens are here. I'm going to multiply this by 2, and then I'm going to multiply this by 3. Okay, what that's going to do is it's going to give me 2 times 3, 6 hydrogens. It's also going to give me 2 nitrogens. And then over here, it's going to give me 3 times 2 hydrogens, which is 6. And then 3 times 1, which is 3 oxygens. Okay, so now I've got my hydrogens balanced. The next thing that I can do is leaving copper and nitrogen for later. Let's balance the oxygens. Okay, I have 3 on this side, I have 1 on this side. My oxygen is there, so I'm going to multiply this by 3. So I'm going to do 3 times 1, get 3 oxygens. But I'm also going to get 3 times 1 for copper. Okay, so now my oxygens balance, but my copper is still a problem here. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is I need 3 on this side because I have 3 on that side, but luckily copper is by itself. So that's what I say, like at the very end you can go through and fix this stuff. So I'll put a 3 there in front of copper. So 3 times 1 gives me 3 for copper. So this balances now.